I'm Sharon Betters, and I'm so glad that we are sharing the Daily Treasure podcast together. We are in our series called Treasures Along the Way, and it's such an encouragement to me personally to go back and remember these mundane moments that God really transformed into majestic moments of investing in His gospel story, to see how each one is a part of the bigger picture, the gospel. Today's devotional is called Mothering a Marathon, Not a Sprint. And today's treasure is from Isaiah 40, verse 29. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. In response to a blog I wrote on overwhelmed young moms, a tired mother asked, "What if those overwhelming days seem to be blending into each other? I know my children are my ministry, but I really don't feel up to the job. I keep praying, but I must not be hearing God's response. He allowed me to be in this place at this time, so why do I feel I can't do this?" Wendy is expressing what many mothers experience every day, and I promised her I would post a response to her plea for help. Here are some of my thoughts based on my own parenting years. 1. Parenting is a marathon, not a sprint. Accept it. You will have bad days mixed in with good moments. After our son's kindergarten teacher saw how discouraged I was with his classroom behavior, she touched my shoulder, smiled, and said, "This too shall pass." I realized this bad behavior was normal, and part of my job was to help him grow in grace. Such change would not happen overnight. When you blow it, take comfort in Isaiah 44:22. "I have swept away your offenses like a cloud, your sins like the morning mist. Return to me, for I have redeemed you." 2. Marathon runners look forward to the cups of water offered from the sidelines. Mommies need to look for and accept cups of cold water that refresh just enough to get her through the next leg of the race. God offers us the living water through a personal relationship to Jesus. We find refreshing, life-giving water in His Word. Before you immediately respond that an overwhelmed young mom doesn't have time to comb her hair, let alone spend time in the Word, listen carefully. We do what's important to us. If we view time in the Word as critical to our sanity, we'll find time to make it happen. But here's the caution. There is no recipe or one way to cultivate intimacy with Christ. Don't pile guilt on if you can't spend an hour a day in the Scriptures. As a young mom, I kept a Christian radio station playing in our home and our car. Praise music was always in the background, and once in a while, I heard a clip of a speaker or interview that was just the right encouragement for the moment. Write out key scriptures and post them strategically around your home, at the kitchen sink, in the laundry room, on the bathroom mirror. Pray for your children before you get out of bed. Take 10 minutes before your kiddies get up and read a quick devotional designed for young moms, or from the classic My Utmost for His Highest, or Streams in the Desert. Plan periodic times where you can spend more time in the Word, perhaps once a month or maybe even once a week. Don't miss the joy because of self-imposed guilt caused by your inability to have morning devotions every day. Isaiah 30, verse 18 tells us, "The Lord longs to be gracious to you. He rises to show you compassion, for the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all who wait for Him." Number 3. Look for a Titus 2 woman, an older woman, to be your cheerleader and help mother you. The Apostle Paul taught the young pastor Titus how to instruct the older women of the church, who in turn taught the younger women how to love their husbands and their children, among other things. Attend a women's Bible study and look for a prayer warrior who will pray for you and your children. If you can't find a woman like this, read books. Yes, take some time to read a few minutes each day. Or listen to podcasts by women you admire. As a young mom, some of my mentors were women I never met, some who were no longer living on this earth. Isaiah 40:29 tells us, "He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak." Number 4, don't overlook the role a single woman can have in your life. Some of the best helpers with our children were young single women who loved children, and they made my life richer by their insights and longing for intimacy with Christ. Experience God's graciousness and compassion through such relationships. Isaiah 30, verse 18 tells us, The Lord longs to be gracious to you. He rises to show you compassion. For the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all who wait for him. And number 5, make your relationship to Jesus obvious to your children by the way you pray with them throughout the day. Perhaps praying for the person in the rushing ambulance or the family next door or for daddy at work. Talk to Jesus as though he is right there because he is, as we read in Isaiah 41:14. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you. Hey friends, thanks so much for joining us for this week of Treasures Along the Way. And as it is Saturday night, I hope that you're thinking about where you're going to be in church tomorrow, how you're going to worship, and I hope that you'll be intentional when you go and think about who needs a touch from you. I'll never forget the woman who came up to me in church shortly after Mark's death and just whispered in my ear, I miss him too. I'll never forget it. It's just a moment, just a few words, and yet it was so intentional in helping turn my heart toward Jesus, and it was a treasure along the way that God created just for me. And so I want to be that treasure for others, and I hope that you will too. One of the ways that we help others be that treasure is through our Help and Hope podcast, where we invite people to share their stories of how God has redeemed the pain in their lives in remarkable ways. And I want to introduce you today to Skip Shainhals, who took on the responsibility as CEO of a failing business, not just any business, but a corporation that was inches from being closed forever. Our son Chuck, Pastor Chuck Elbetters, talks to Skip in this conversation. Skip is the man who led WisFis Financial Corporation from the brink of failure to being the leading independent bank serving the greater Philadelphia and Delaware region with a local presence and national subsidiaries. Now you might think, well, what does that have to do with Help and Hope? What does that have to do with walking by faith? If you're a business person who has ever lost their job more than once, if you are someone who has struggled with your faith in really dark places where you wondered if life really had any meaning for you, well, then you'll understand why this conversation is so important. As Skip shares his story, he is transparent about the hard places, and he's transparent about how his challenging personal journey helped prepare him for the battle to save a corporation that is now 190 years old. Skip chronicles his journey in his book From Failing to Phenomenal, and we are so grateful to have the opportunity to share his story with you. Go to helpandhopenow.org, that's helpandhopenow.org, and look for Life Lessons from a CEO, Chuck's conversation with Skip Shainhals. That's Life Lessons from a CEO. That's Life Lessons from a CEO, Chuck's conversation with Skip Shainhals. I'm Sharon Betters. Thanks so much for joining us, and I look forward to being with you tomorrow.